Murray gets a handoff, drives in, and gets a pretty hard kick out to Mike, who makes the three. And that's just some of the decision-making I'm hoping to see from Jamal.
He needs to be aggressive enough that it matters. Like, the reason the defense reacts here is because he blows by his man and he's going to get to the rim, and that opens up the passing window to get the ball to MPJ. But it's been less bad than it is right now is the thing. Like, maybe we've underestimated Jamal's impact with the bench because it was bad. But it's been worse. It kind of manifested itself in an extreme way when he had to play 12 straight minutes of that fourth quarter, and then was just the worst we've seen him down the stretch of that game on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, they trying to get him into shape by playing him in longer stints. It reminded me of where the Knicks on the podcast arguing over who messed up the coverage, and Jokić was able to hit AG on the dunker.
It's literally the same exact thing. It was literally Josh Hart, and it was the same defender.
Welcome back to What's in a Game. I'm Will Jones, back again with Grace Jean, who is out on vacation on the East Coast. How are you, Grace?
I'm good. Love spending time with family, so good to be back here before the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of sucks for those who are dependent upon the Nuggets to have joy over this holiday season. You may be out of luck right now, but if not, then you can just enjoy the holidays despite whatever the Nuggets do.
Please do that if possible. Enjoy the holidays regardless of what the Nuggets do.
For sure.
Nuggets should be the cherry on top. Might I suggest hate watching?
Oh yeah, hate watch some other teams. That'll be fun. Yeah, so programming notes before we go on. We are going to be back after the Hawks game, after their East Coast road trip on, what is that, on December 8th?
That game is on the 8th, so we'll be back shortly after that.
And we don't have any notable news items, so we can just kind of go right into the Nuggets and these games. So, yes, obviously they had the NBA Cup game against the Mavs. It was an up and down game where we went down early and made a comeback and were able to get back up by 5 with 3 minutes left, but we still lost that game. There was no Luka in that game, so for people who thought this might be an easier win, especially because that was a game, Jokic's first game back after his absence, it didn't go necessarily as a lot of people expected, I would guess. In these last 3 games, the Nuggets have not answered any questions about their defense. And
None at all.
Part of it is that AG's out. You know, he's one of our most athletic players, if not the most athletic player on our team. And I saw Jason Timpf tweet, who he's on Hoops Tonight for people who don't know who that is, he said something about like the key to like a roster this season is perimeter athleticism, is his assertion. And obviously we're now missing that with AG. Not that he's like the key perimeter defender. I guess Christian's supposed to be that. So we can talk about how he's doing in that regard. But what did you think of this Mavs game, first impressions and or biggest concern?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of people focused on the last 5 minutes of that game because they did have a chance to win it at the end. But to me, the game was lost entirely in that first half. And that's really easy to say because they did go down 20 in this game. I believe they were down 20 at half. They allowed 70 points in the first half of that game, which is really, really bad defensively. A lot of it was like turnovers and runouts and just not getting back in transition. So that was like that was bad. I've talked so much about how this season there have been so few stretches where the Nuggets look truly impressive and they go on their big runs. And you see in the third quarter of this game, and even for stretches of the fourth quarter, where they're just like getting stops, getting out and running, and then executing on the other end of the floor. In that first half, I thought they were scoring fine, especially with Jokić on the floor. There were some like execution lapses, particularly to close the half, because you saw, like I said, they were down 20, but it's not like they were down 20 because of the bench. Like the starters came in, and then the Mavs were able to extend their lead because they were able to mess with the starters a little bit on offense, but then just kind of kill them, just getting down the other end of the floor. Second half of the game, they just started playing transition defense again, and that's how they got back into it without giving up easy baskets. But yeah, I just like the defense continues to be a problem, and it was especially in the first half of this game and in the Knicks game that we're going to talk about in a bit.
I actually didn't watch this game live, so I had to go back and look at it, and I was surprised to see it was so close at the end. But really, I did think the defensive intensity in the second half was a big part of why they were even able to come back into the game. So at least there was that little glimpse of something, and they got a ton of blocks in that game as well, which I did bring a couple clips of them. Obviously, we have Pwat, an early block. He was one of the better defensive options, I think, against PJ Washington and also Kyrie, whereas they were,
Absolutely.
yeah, they were able to, PJ and Kyrie were able to really abuse a lot of the other Nuggets players on defense, I thought.
I think PJ especially got to abuse a lot of the other Nuggets players because they decided to make Peyton the primary on Kyrie. And I think that was in large part, because of how well he did in the last Dallas game, which we talked about how good Pwat was whenever he got switched on to Kyrie, and they had him on Kyrie at the end of that game.
Yeah.
But then PJ Washington gets to bully all these smaller Nuggets, and that's the disadvantage of not only having AG out, but because you have to put Pwat on your perimeter player, and he's like your other forward in that case, then the forwards on the other team get to bully all of the other players, and that was especially a problem for Jamal. I think he was getting bullied by PJ, and also I think had a tough time with Najee Marshall, who I think was a better ball handler and shot creator in this game than I expected him to be. Not that he was like taking and making tough shots, like he was getting to that short floater that we've seen him be comfortable with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not a big forward, but he's bigger than Jamal, and because Peyton has to be on Kyrie because we don't have a better point of attack option there, it leaves us vulnerable in other areas. So that's like, I think this game introduced some of the personnel issues with the defense, not introduced but highlighted.
Yeah.
And then obviously if you work really hard like they were in the second half to get back in transition, force turnovers, you can get back in the game. But if you come out with a lackluster effort and you're at a personnel disadvantage like they were in this game, you go down 20 at half.
Yeah. There was this clip of, the game's a 4-point game in the fourth. It's a transition play for the Mavs, and you got multiple guys getting back, Julian and Pwat kind of contributing on a block here. So there was more effort by the Nuggets in this game towards the end.
Completely agree with that second half. And the thing with the first half is the Nuggets were the thing you could say about what Dallas was doing defensively the best in that first half was not letting Denver get any of their easy transition baskets. Like they were getting back in transition like the Nuggets were in the second half. And that was something that I commented during the game. Like the difference in the transition defense between the two teams was almost the margin at halftime. Just in terms of like who was getting like the easy baskets, getting back and like and ones and whatnot, versus having to like, okay, slow down and get back into your half court sets because everybody was back. And that effort that we saw in the fourth quarter from the Nuggets was not there in the first half. And it was there for Dallas, especially in the first half.
Yeah, Pwat, I thought, obviously was probably the biggest part of our third quarter run that we had. It started out a 13-0 run, then and then they scored, and then I think it was Pwat or CB who hit a three, and it was a 16-2 run, and then by the time it was all said and done, it was a 27-6 run for the Nuggets to get back in the game. And Mike had a really big offensive quarter in the third. And Pwat's defense was helping us get back into it. So, and Murray did get abused a bit. Like I saw a ton of people criticizing his D after the game when I was asking about, what were the impressions from the game. But he did have 3 blocks. So, I mean, this was all a part of, during the Nuggets getting back into it. He got a block on Najee Marshall. Or wait, sorry, that's
Peyton
Jalen
Hardy.
Durant. Yeah, Hardy. So he had a block on Hardy there. The second one was in the fourth. He kind of comes over and gets Gafford, which was pretty unexpected, I would say. But that was like part of the Nuggets actually taking the lead. And then the third one was on Kyrie in transition, which he tried to save it and hit it back out of bounds. And so the Mavs get the ball back there, which if he grabs the ball there, who knows what would happen. But so there was some effort from Murray here, but overall, would you say you were disappointed with his defense in this game?
I mean, I was disappointed with his defense at the end of the game. And this is not an excuse because I think especially like there was I believe this was a clutch possession. He doesn't close out properly to Najee Marshall, who's able to just drive like right past him and score a layup. And then there's another one where uh he ends up on PJ on a switch. I think right after like he has to switch with Russ. I think the action called for it. That was the right thing to do. And then PJ's able to just drive on him, and I forget if it was a layup or an and one. At that point, I think that was the bucket that sparked the Mavs kind of coming back from the Nuggets comeback because they had just gone up, like you said, 5 in the last 3 minutes or so. And in the first half of that game, I don't think anybody was good except for Peyton, who was doing an excellent job on Kyrie the entire game. Like, if you look at Kyrie's stat line from that game, that was all Peyton. He did a really good job on, like, there was one possession where Kyrie's able to lose him off the ball, come off a handoff, and then get to a layup. The rest of the time, any shots that he made were tough, and he was really inefficient that night. Like Peyton did a really good job, like not biting on fakes, like just stayed really disciplined. That was a great defensive game from him. We'll talk about that not being great. In the second half, he just continued to do that, and then everybody else like caught up with him in length. So I actually don't think that there was a big difference between the two halves for Peyton defensively. He obviously had a few additional plays that helped to like continue that run that was sparked to get them back in the game. But I thought that he was just really solid throughout the whole night. But it really shows the impact that just one person can make defensively, which is not that much to the team context. I guess he's the reason that it wasn't a 30-point game at half.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like Kyrie would have cooked comfortably. But one person playing defense is not enough.
Right. There was a play that this is reminding me of where Pwat did as good as he possibly could on PJ, who was having a lot of success in the post early in the game. So here's the play where he's playing one-on-one with PJ and he's, being physical, contesting with his hands straight up.
The only person I saw PJ miss a shot against, by the way, in this game was when Peyton got switched on to him. And that, again, just has to do with, like, well, it would have been great if we could have had somebody else for Kyrie because then we could have had Peyton on PJ, but PJ got to cook comfortably most of the time.
Right. And he finally misses that. And this is when Dallas had been building their lead, just starting to go on a run and pull away in the first half. Gafford gets the rebound, unfortunately, and Najee Marshall is this 1 foot desperate three, and the shot clock is down, and he makes it. A little bit of a backbreaker there because Pwat did as good as he could, but at the end of the day, don't stop the possession with a rebound, and Najee gets the three. And Najee Marshall really destroyed us. Like, as much as we were going on a run to get back in the game, Najee Marshall was still able to like continue to make it a close game, even though the Nuggets went on a 27-6 run. And then it kind of continued on later into the game. With Kyrie, I had this one clip of just an interesting screen where Pwat is on Kyrie, and he's been playing good defense on Kyrie here. And I don't know if this is another miscommunication or what, but they come to set a screen, and Pwat, he doesn't even try to fight around it. There's not even contact, really. He just starts backing up. And Kyrie's able to just pull up and rise into the shot, and Murray's obviously not going to be there to really fully contest.
Could you go back to that, the beginning of that play?
Yeah.
So they've got Quentin Grimes on the ball here. Jamal's trying to keep up with him.
He already gets
able
screened.
To go under, and then he gets screened, but then he's able to kind of recover. Then Kyrie comes over, and he's like, it looks like Jamal calls for a switch there.
Yeah.
Because when you say Peyton just accepts that he's going to get screened, if you look at how Peyton's standing, it looks like Jamal just told him, "Okay, we're switching," and Jamal's like, "Okay, I'll take Kyrie," and
Yeah.
then
I don't
so
know
that was like
if he called for the
for
switch and he didn't switch, obviously maybe Jamal wasn't expecting him to just pull up right there. But again, miscommunications or
that seemed like I kind of put that on Jamal because I don't think
okay,
like
it's fair.
Peyton just standing there like accepting the screen. It seems like I'm looking at Jamal too. He angles himself like he's like, okay, I'm gonna take Kyrie, like right after
Hmm.
what I assume was communication of the switch.
That would make
So
sense. Yeah, that was just one where I was like, what happened on that? Because that just didn't
yeah,
seem like something Pwat would do. So if he did call for it, and this is something across the board, like Trey Alexander got minutes in some of these games, and they weren't him and Russ weren't communicating, and it's he's a new player, so it's hard to necessarily know what to do all the time. And this
and
one,
we have a lot of new players, and
yeah,
these communication issues have been a thing since we like our second episode of the season. We were talking about this.
yeah, this is like new units, and Malone's been trying to be creative with it. You had the last episode with Ryan about units, and they're all getting different minutes with different players, and so it's going to take a bit to settle in. And Kyrie, there's no Luka. Kyrie's hard enough to guard on his own. I did bring in this clip where basically he was triple teamed. I mean, we have three guys, Mike, CB, and Jokić, all on him, and he's able to still just push through Mike. I think Mike tried to either take a charge there, and Kyrie ends up getting the and one. So you're gonna have moments like that where Kyrie's just gonna be amazing, but you gotta do your best in the margins to win the game too. And if you're
Well, that's
miscommunicating
the
on
position
plays
that you
and
put yourself in when you're giving up the easy baskets on top of this stuff, right?
right,
Like you can survive these buckets if you're not giving up all the stuff in transition and all the easy dunks in the half court based on like being out of position defensively and getting back cut and giving up offensive rebounds, etc. too,
hmm
right?
well, let's get into the end of the game, the clutch time, and talk a little bit about Russ as well, because the Nuggets got up five with 3 minutes left, and CB wasn't in the game. Malone goes with a Russ and Jamal. They played the entire fourth, right?
Yes, Russ and Jamal both played through the entire fourth quarter, and I think Russ actually played 14 straight game minutes because he came in for his stint with a couple minutes left in the third quarter.
It lots of people were disappointed with Malone with that decision. When I was watching the tape again and when I was going through the clips, I didn't necessarily notice like a glaring hole with CB, especially because the Nuggets did get a lead. Russ did have a good low man rotation where he got a steal in the fourth, and he did hit back to back threes, which
Yes,
I don't think
absolutely.
I don't think Malone left him in because he was like Russ is going to hit the threes, but you never know with him. Apparently, that he's going to bring
He was having a good
energy.
game.
Yeah. So I thought it still paid off for the most
I
part
think
getting a
Malone left him
lead.
in because he wanted to relieve some of the pressure on Jamal, just in terms
Right.
of initiation. But I think I think like my issue with the whole thing was that both of them played the entire fourth quarter, and like Jamal was clearly dead on both sides by the end
Right.
of that game. Since we're on the topic, I had a question for you about just generally how much you think Jamal is being impacted by the difference in how Malone's running his rotations. For years, everyone was saying, please, like, let's stagger MPJ instead of Jamal with the bench. Like, let's stop this 2 point guard thing. And Ryan and I got into it in the context of, how much Jamal improves maybe those bench lineups a little bit, as opposed to just having Russ out there, just having him on the floor as a decoy, whatever, like helps for some reason, regardless of how Jamal is playing right now. But the other part of it is that he's playing these longer stints because Malone isn't taking him out 5 minutes into the game with the thought of bringing him back in with the bench. So he's playing, maybe 8 minutes or so in the first quarter, and then he's playing, a long stint to close the half, and then again in the second half. And then in this game, it was extreme because Malone's playing him the entire fourth quarter. But I kind of wonder if the criticism of the 2 point guard lineups and whatever with staggering Jamal with the bench were misplaced, not just because of how Jamal might actually make some of those lineups less bad than they would be, as we can see right now, but also because of how it impacts his individual play, getting to play 5 to 6 minute stints as opposed to, 8, 9, 10. In this game, it was a 12-minute stint to close.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really fully gotten away from that rotation and that stagger.
Right, but it's really not coming until like Malone might put Jamal in a little bit before he puts Jokić in the second quarter, but he's not in for most of the time that Russ is on the floor running the bench unit
Yeah.
ever since Jokić came back. Right. Obviously, when Jokić was out, like we got a lot of that look just by virtue of like who are the guys that can play. But it's been less bad than it is right now, is the thing. Like maybe we've underestimated Jamal's impact with the bench because it was bad, but it's been worse just objectively with him off the floor,
Yeah.
with Jokić off the floor,
I
which
guess
makes
that's
like
true.
he is a good player. And even he's been playing so poorly, and yet the numbers say that Jamal is actually winning his minutes with Jokić off the floor this season. And part of that is because of the games where they played without Jokić are doing uh doing a lot of heavy lifting there. But the numbers don't lie in
Yeah.
that sense. That especially with Jokić off the floor, like Russ is better when Jamal is on the floor.
I mean, I think Russ and Murray have been playing better together than I initially thought coming into the season. It's not like it's foolproof. I think because I like Jamal's 3 point shooting still next to Russ. It's just about, I think I like Russ being it. He's just more like explosive than Murray off the dribble right now. And I like that more
I
than,
mean, he's more
yeah.
explosive than like most. The
Yeah.
question is the ball going to get into the hoop once he
Yeah,
gets
that. But I
the
like when
shot?
Russ drives and can pass out, even if that sometimes leads to turnovers. We've seen some good glimpses and looks off of that. And Murray, I guess it comes down to if the bench is going to be so bad without Murray that you just have to put him in and you just have to deal with this, or if using Murray less in those stagger minutes preserves him and gives him a chance to be more fresh.
Right. I guess what I'm saying isn't that not playing with the bench is preserving him. I'm saying it's actually worse because not only is he playing more minutes, but all the starters are playing more minutes this season. But the stints that he's playing are longer. So in the past, when Malone would stagger Jamal with the bench, he'd play him the first 5 minutes of the first, take him out, bring him back in for the bench stint, and that would be like closing the first quarter or the third quarter. You can extrapolate this into both halves, and then be playing like the first 3 or 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. And if things get out of hand with the bench, he'd bring Jokić back in, and Jamal would get to sit for a few minutes before he comes back in to close the fourth. So the stints that he's playing are longer. And what I'm saying is that the Mavs game and the end of the Mavs game was an extreme example of what it looks like when these guys have to play just an extremely long stint. And this is actually something that Adam Mares over at DNVR talked about a few weeks ago when he was comparing I think he was looking at effective field goal percentages for different guards that he was comparing Jamal to over the course of a long stint of basketball in a row. So like they're playing over the course of, I think it was like 8 or 9 minutes, and you can see that their efficiency drops as that stint goes on. And
Mm.
that was in the context of a conversation about how conditioning is especially important for guards. But what I'm saying is maybe the rotations that we used to have when Jamal was staggering with the bench, where he would play these short stints, were better for him, actually. And maybe we underestimated the impact of just having him on the floor for those bench units. I don't know, right? Because we have a completely different bench unit now. It's hard to compare apples to oranges in that sense. But in terms of this year, that is starting to become like a recurring thing. And it kind of manifested itself in an extreme way when he had to play 12 straight minutes of that fourth quarter and then was just the worst we've seen him down the stretch of that game on both ends of the floor. Like
Yeah.
worst we've seen him this season.
I have to think that playing him 12 minutes in the fourth is not going to end up well for him being able to close out the game with effective intensity, especially on defense. So I just wonder what Malone thinks about needing to play Murray in these long stints. It's like clearly he thinks he almost needs to do that. Like, is he just not trusting the players that are in those moments that he's playing Murray for longer? Or is he trying to let Murray play to like get out of a slump? I don't know what his thinking is.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. Something we didn't talk about when we had Ryan on, we were talking about the road trip. Something that really stood out to me in the Pelicans game. David Adelman played Jamal 42 minutes in that game. And part of that could be like we're really trying to get that win, but
Yeah.
especially because they went down so big early, I felt like that was, I don't know, punishment. Like I'm really curious about what's going on between Jamal and the coaching staff when it comes to this conditioning question, because I mean, like the answer to the question is that he's clearly not anywhere near peak shape
Yeah,
for
are
the
they trying to get
season.
him into shape by playing him in longer stints? Like, I don't know, maybe.
I'm very curious because I was like, oh, that was excessive in that game. But as we talked about, like especially when you don't have Jokić on the floor, not having Jamal on the floor is like a further cratering of the just how the team is playing. So that could have just been like we're just trying to get this win. But that definitely stood out to me because I think that's the most that any starter has played in any game this season.
Yeah, I don't know if it's hindsight. It's like it's easy to say this in hindsight. It would have like Malone would have been like a genius if when we went up, he like benches Jamal and puts in CB just to get the defense and the fresh legs out there because Murray just got blown by and didn't contribute anything on offense anyway. Um,
Yeah.
he- so it's
Yeah.
easy to say that, but I think that would have been a good move. It was just a tough sequence at the end. I mean, we went to Jokić a couple times in the clutch to try and stay in the game, and he missed two shots. He had a tough shot where he had multiple defenders on him in the paint. Pwat was cutting in. And I was saying if that was AG playing, I think Jokić would have hit him earlier, and he passed up that pass, went for the shot and missed. The next play, Russ Lively's able to block him, and then Jokić had a mismatch on the next possession, and he missed that as well. So I just think the process maybe wasn't too different, despite the fact that Murray was still in. We weren't going to him, but it was more the defense that was the issue because we weren't able to stop them at all, and they were able to score. And then Murray had to try to intentionally miss the free throw and made it, and that was
And
the
made
game.
it. Yeah. He'd been missing free throws all game, by the way.
We were able to get a good win against the Lakers, maybe our most convincing win of the season, just by the score and by how easy it almost looked. But I do think after going back and looking at this game in the context of the Mavs and the Knicks game and seeing how, whether it was effort or just lack of focus or whatever it was that happened in the Mavs and Knicks game, I do think that the Lakers really played horribly in addition to the Nuggets playing well. I mean, the Nuggets had 7 turnovers in the first quarter against the Lakers, and we still won that quarter. And that doesn't happen a lot with the Nuggets, where they're turning it over
Yeah,
a
where they
lot.
have all those turnovers, and they've actually been turning the ball over quite a bit early. And this is like a thing against the Lakers for some reason too, because ever since I believe it was our last regular season matchup against them last year, and then it continued on into the first round series in the playoffs, they'd get off to these horrid starts, and a large part of it was just turnovers and runouts. And it was like every game in that Lakers series. That's how the Lakers always built these early leads, was just forcing turnovers and getting runouts. So it's funny that in this game they still forced 7 turnovers, and then we still won the first quarter.
I mean, that was a great Russ game. It was cool that he did it in crypto. Another positive note was Christian Brown had 2 corner early threes in that quarter, which I think helped us win that because that's not necessarily something we're getting in such like compressed stints. See, you might hit 2 threes in a game, but like 2 threes like that, especially in the corner, is something that's a good sign. But I also just thought AD and LeBron had a terrible offensive game and probably a terrible defensive game, to be honest. I mean, LeBron was 1 for 5 in the third. He had 2 wide open 3s that he completely missed. Whereas in other games, he hit like 4 threes in a row or whatever against the Magic.
The Magic,
Yeah,
my
and
Orlando Magic.
that was a good game, but LeBron didn't have it in this one against the Nuggets. AD just looked super tentative, like he was not attacking Jokić. When he did get some shots or was going for some fadeaways, he just missed them.
AD was terrible in this game, just straight
Yeah, it
up.
was
Like he got
really
inside
terrible.
and like wasn't finishing at the rim. He was constantly looking for foul calls that weren't coming. Um, Jokić was just like, dude, whatever. Like there was this sequence where AD goes in and he's like right at the rim and Jokić is just standing there like this, and AD kind of tries to push off of him and like this layup, and then the Nuggets get a run out on the other end. The Lakers fans are really tired of it, honestly. All
Yeah,
of the film that was circulating from this game from my favorite Lakers fan accounts or whatever were just like AD falling on the ground and then the Nuggets getting runouts and beating them in transition. And I'm just like, this is just every Nuggets Lakers game. This is what the film looks like, especially defensively. Like they just have nothing for the Nuggets. You talked about how LeBron, he definitely missed some wide open threes that I've seen him make against other teams. I also thought that Peyton Watson actually did a decent job on him, just kind of bothering him, and especially a difference at the point of attack because we started doing a lot of blitzing with like Peyton and Jokić, and that's just a lot of length. So LeBron ended up like getting a lot of turnovers trying to pass out of those blitzes too. Other than that, yeah, I just thought like they just forced a lot of turnovers on the Lakers in the third quarter, and they just like couldn't score, and then we would get a run out because their transition defense is so like it's worse than
yeah.
ours.
Yeah, the Lakers, I mean, we out rebounded them so bad in the third quarter, and the Lakers had tons of turnovers off just terrible passes in the third. And with LeBron and AD just being like having a really bad offensive third quarter, because they were up at half and we just smoked them in the third, had a massive third quarter, and that was a part of why we were able to pull away. And then they just kind of, yeah, the Lakers did not fight back at all in the fourth, and we just kind of cruised to the win. But yeah, I thought Pwat did do well on LeBron, and Jokić had a couple steals off of some LeBron skip passes, which was cool. I mean, that's
Yeah,
something that
yeah.
Jokić
It's
himself
always funny with
does.
those two because I feel like they read each other's passes pretty well.
Yeah.
So it's actually fun to watch LeBron and Jokic play defense against each other off ball.
Yep.
It becomes this like really slow chess match.
Yeah. I love it. With the defense, though, just to get back to that, because like you said, the Nuggets love the blitz, and we love having Jokić at the level, which is always going to have a free roller for the most part. Someone's going to have to tag that person, and then the weak side's usually going to be open. And if the team that we're playing is good enough to swing it to the weak side, which LeBron is here in this play, which I will play. So we got this is a double drag. So Pwat gets screened. Jokić is at the level. He's up on it. Christian's going to have to tag AD off this, and Jamal's kind of going with him, but it doesn't matter. Reeves is wide open in the weak side corner, which is going to be a shot I think teams can get a lot if they have a good enough passer
Yeah,
to like hit that.
absolutely. And hit it in time because I thought that if that wasn't literally a perfect pass, Christian had a good closeout, but it was a
Yeah.
perfect pass.
Yep.
So
I thought, like I said, the Lakers kind of played bad as much as the Nuggets did play well. Maybe the
yeah.
Nuggets got too complacent after that win because they came into the next game really not focused. But just one thing I wanted to talk about offensively before we move on is the Yoke Russ connection. Russ is just, for him being older, has seen so many offensive possessions. So Koloko's trying to front Jokić here. And, that's an easy pass for Russ to just lay it over the top for Jokić and an easy score.
Yeah.
I love those types of
And that's
passes.
good. that he was able to do that despite how far off of him LeBron was playing. Because actually, like ideally, and like someone else who isn't LeBron is playing that far off of Russ and is just like completely ignoring him and can just steal that pass or make it impossible. But he
Mhm.
just made it like kind of difficult by playing that far back, but not actually affecting it at all once it was in the air.
I also thought this Russ screen was interesting because Jokic initially waves Mike to go into the corner. And so you have Mike in the right corner and Christian kind of creeping down into the dunker spot. That takes LeBron out of help position, or at least easy help position. So this high ball screen. And Russ, I think Jokic just knows Russ has speed to get around these screens and is just going to pull defenders. So, I mean, he takes two with him just with his explosiveness and is able to just get a really easy pass to Jokic for a nice, easy floater in the paint.
Yeah, Russ has been very good with Jokic on the floor, particularly because he defers to Jokic. It's very clear what the team is trying to do because it's either get the ball to Jokic or wait until Jokic, gets everybody into the position that he wants and then get the ball to Jokic. And that's the directive. And I think he has been really good in that regard on ball.
Yep. One thing we didn't really talk about, but Mike had a massive quarter in the third
Yeah,
offensively.
absolutely.
Huge Porter quarter to get us back in the
He just
game.
killed them. Like, they have
Yeah.
no answer for MPJ, and it wasn't just threes. Actually, I remember a corner three he made maybe in the first quarter, but most of it was just, like, on cuts and drives.
Oh,
Like, he was just killing them inside.
I have this play here where it was like a horns alignment, and we enter it to Russ, and uh, Jokic screens. Max Christie's way behind, and AD doesn't even bother picking him up, trying to stick to Jokic, but it's just like a really easy pass. So that was just nice to see Mike utilizing different aspects of his game there. I was actually not sure how much we would talk about the Knicks game because it was such a bad loss in terms of the score. We got blown out. But I actually did pull quite a bit of clips for this game.
Oh, what is it? Masochism is on the menu today.
Yeah, so for you fans who are like, let's just move on from this game. Let's not have any takes. The Nuggets just weren't focused, whatever. I mean, how bad of a game do you think this was defensively?
So watching it live, it felt like the Knicks have maybe the second best offensive execution that I've seen like in the league this year, in this game, like just execution wise, right? Because you can survive a bad defensive game, obviously, against a bad offensive team, but there's a reason that the Knicks are a top five offense. And I believe this game brought them up to number two behind the Boston Celtics uh, in terms of their offensive rating. But I did think that there were very like it was one of those games where the Knicks were getting all of the easy stuff and all the tough stuff too,
Yeah.
right? Like they might have lost this game anyway, even with a good defensive game, but it was such a bad defensive game that you can't even like you have to start on that end. I know like people were really not happy with the first quarter offense either, but to me the defense was just so much more egregiously bad that that's yeah. Like I thought it was the worst defensive performance of the season pretty easily, and I thought I'd said that after I think it was the first Mavs game because they won that game on their offense like almost entirely. The second Mavs
Yeah.
game was also bad, but at least they had a good half. But this game was just like start to finish, just terrible.
There wasn't even like a stretch where we were putting in some intensity and trying to get back in it. Yeah, I wrote down just bad everything: bad screen navigating, bad rebounding, bad transition D, bad coverages. Because like you said, we have plays like this where it's a screen and roll with Brunson and OG, and I don't know if they were supposed to switch or who called for it, but um,
It looks
uh,
like Trey like puts his hands up like what's supposed to happen here? Could you go back and
yeah.
see that like right when Russ gets caught? So watch Trey. He's like, "What?" Okay. Like, okay.
It's so true. And then OG just rolls for free, and I don't know what's going on. Russ just lets him go. So you have plays like that where OG just gets a free roll. Then you have plays like this where Pwat is trying as hard as he can to close out and stay with OG and does somewhat okay, kind of slips, but that's even just a tough fadeaway for OG and hits it.
I think he's a problem. Like he cooks us, man. But at least on the Knicks, like there was that 30 plus point blowout that the Knicks had against us in Madison Square Garden last year. We beat the Knicks when they came to Denver, but OG was out that game. So was Julius Randle. So that's a problem, especially if the unthinkable happens and we finally get a Mellow Bowl finals between the
Yeah,
Nuggets and the Knicks.
right.
They're a really tough offensive team to figure out, and their worst offensive player, and it's by a mile, is McCall Bridges. And he was terrible in this game,
Yeah,
really, like on both ends of the floor. And they still won by 30. But it's one of those things where you're like, he can still do things. Like he can cut and like finish at the rim and like finish in transition and all of that stuff too. Everyone else was, I think, a pretty good passer. Like they kept the ball moving. They played with pace. That's something that I think is very different than last season. Jalen Brunson is really good about giving up the ball early. The Knicks are like, I think they were the team that was 30th in pace last season. We talked about how the Nuggets moved up from, they were 27th last year. The Knicks they're 27th. So they're actually not playing at that much pace. It's just against us. They were probably like, oh, these boys are not trying to play transition defense tonight. And they were right,
hmm,
actually.
yep,
So that's interesting that it seemed like it was a game plan specific thing. So they basically did to us what we did to the Lakers,
yeah,
like
for sure.
just straight up
And they
in
lost
that
to the
game.
Jazz right before this Nuggets game, so I'm
Hmm.
sure that they were feeling like they wanted to, bring the intensity, and that was part of why I think their pace was higher too. They were like amped up. Trey getting minutes early, he's a young player. He's not going to be able to navigate screens as well as vets are, of course. And I have plenty of examples here. This is Trey getting super caught on a screen, and Jokić is, way. I don't even think he was prepared, so he's technically playing dropped here or soft drop, and it's just that is not going to be a good contest
Yeah.
on
I thought it
Brunson.
was I thought it was interesting that he went over on that. He was trying to go over on that screen. He would have been fine if he went under and tried to meet Brunson
Yeah,
on the
that's
other side,
true.
actually. But look at this. They have a screen and roll big and Jericho Sims who can give decent minutes just by virtue of being able to do basic things,
Basic
basic
screens.
basketball things like set screens, roll,
Hmm.
and finish at the rim.
Yeah, even CB got caught. This is going to happen. The screens are good, or the Knicks are a good offensive team. Um, you know, little simple flare screen here for OG. Cat is able to catch him.
Could you rewind on this really quick?
Yeah, there's a little brush
Is
screen,
this like a communication thing?
like a down screen, brush screen for Cat. Mikal Bridges has it on the wing, and then Cat
On
comes
top
around
of
and
that.
screens flare screen for Christian. So maybe since Jokic was coming off of that off ball screen, wasn't able to communicate with CB there as much, but he definitely gets killed on the screen, and there's no one who
I mean, this
closes
is the
out.
kind of thing like we would kill a team with,
Yeah,
right? Like this is just good offense. That's the other thing is like some of these are like, yeah, there are ways to like make this a little bit more avoidable, but that was like the kind of possession that you'd watch and you're like, well, it was a wide open shot, so there's no way that it could have been good defense. And it wasn't good defense, but it's not like I would kill them for it defense. It's like that was a really good,
hmm,
offensive play call, and they executed that really well
but
to
it
get
just
that
goes to
shot. Like
show
that's the
that
kind of
like,
thing that other teams would be angry at their team against for like playing against us, right?
oh man, that actually there was one play. Where it reminded me of that the Knicks pod. This is like a little tangent, then we'll get back to the defense. But where the Knicks on the podcast were talking about Jokic's eyes and how like they were arguing over who messed up the coverage, and Jokic was able to hit AG on the dunker.
Boom.
Yeah, he literally had it. Jokic, when he threw it over his head, he had the ball. I went, like the game plan said, I did my job. You did not sink.
Like it,
It's literally the same exact thing. It was literally Josh Hart
yeah, Josh
in
Hart
this
again.
the same defender.
So it's like Jokic is at the free throw line. He's probably like, oh, I'm supposed to come up and double. And of course, Brunson's trying to get on the
And then Brunson
rotation.
can't rotate in time. Yeah. See, you look at that play and you're like, is that bad defense from the Knicks? Probably because I don't know that Josh Hart should have helped, except that Cat had a terrible post angle there. Like Jokic would have been able to just spin off him pretty easily, which is
Yeah.
probably why Josh Hart helped. So that like started at the point of attack. Like everything
Yeah.
starts with the point of attack defense, right? I don't think Knicks fans would like kill the Knicks for that defensive possession. That was just
Nah.
good offense.
Yeah, for sure. Back to just defense really quick in these screens. We actually have this funny clip where Jokić screens for Brunson because Jokić is just standing at the top of the 3-point line, not guarding anyone, and basically screens Pwat. I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, he totally does screen him.
Yeah, I mean he didn't make that, but I just thought that was that was like the second
No,
possession.
I think that is funny. Kind of said everything about how the game was going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, we had DJ coming in the second quarter, and it's like DJ's not going to be able to guard Cat on the perimeter.
Yeah, Cat cooked. Like
DJ's not going to have the speed to get out and really contest a Cat 3 like that. And we don't have a lot of options at center. We're trying a ton of different stuff. Malone went to DJ. Don't know that was the smartest move, but what are you going to do?
Actually wouldn't have minded. And this would have been like if they're trying to experiment in this game kind of thing, which they weren't. And I kind of wonder, like, maybe they should have done like a couple of different things in the second half, not to come back, but just to like see if they could find something. I wouldn't have minded a double big look in the bench with like DJ and Zeke or or Zeke and Dario even. Which like that could have been just like a plus minus disaster. But when you're down 30, like it doesn't matter. In part because you could put Zeke on the center and switch more actions and then have DJ roaming off of like a bad shooter or whatever. And even if he can't like come off and help, it just means that he doesn't have to be on Cat. So he doesn't have to be involved in as many actions. But they went with what they went with. I understand why like certain players should be playing and other players just shouldn't be playing. But that's just like an idea that I had. Not everything works, but it would have been nice to just see like what that looks like. But yeah, no, like that was a terrible game.
Yeah, terrible.
Terrible game.
Terrible game. And Mike has been really good, I think, in recent games, especially offensively. He went 1 for 7 in the third, and 3 of those was on the same possession. So where he like shot, missed.
Okay.
He got the rebound. He tried to tip it in, missed, and then he got the rebound and tried again and missed.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like he was like a huge negative looking at the stats, but I was like, Mike's been one of the only dudes who's had it kind of going consistently besides Jokić, obviously. This game was funny because when the season started, Mike and Murray were like the 2 most disappointing players, like in terms of expectations. Maybe not your Murray expectations if you were low on him coming into the season, but this game,
I think he's been below even the lowest expectations, honestly.
Yeah.
Now
fair.
we're just calling for like people. I think the expectations, even from those people who are angry at him, are like, could you just please go back to being normal? Like normal,
just get back to your base level.
Early season, like you instead of like Jordan Poole level.
Yeah, I thought it was funny that like everyone was basically playing bad except for Mike and Jamal. I mean, some people were arguing Jamal's game was not bad. It wasn't like it was great, but I also thought there was some
offensively.
Yeah, offensively. Yeah, and I mean, we've been concerned about his offense, so there was some things that I'll bring up later where I thought he could be gaining progress.
I think he looked good early and late in the game. I just late second quarter all the way through the rest of his stint, because the starters didn't play the fourth quarter, which was the only positive of like losing by this much, because Malone will put them back in when they're down 20, but because they were down 30, like they did not come back in. I thought that he stopped looking at the rim and was looking to pass more to Jokić, and it was funny because the Knicks were guarding him as like creating a lot of space, because they would kind of like have Mikal, he gets caught on the screen and then stay with Jokić top, and then kind of play Jamal for the pass, which is exactly what they were trying to do. It's not that he necessarily turned the ball over, but it was clear that like the Knicks they've scouted us very well, I think. I thought the offense was not the biggest problem in this game. It wasn't like amazing though, I will admit. And I think part of that was that, especially with both Jamal and Russ, I thought the Knicks did a better job of just scouting the fact that they're trying to get Jokić the ball, and they made it harder to do that in some instances, particularly in second half. So just like they were not allowing like a run to be sparked. Like as soon as the Nuggets scored like 2 baskets, he was blowing that whistle. Like we're not having to come back here tonight. But they also like kept, getting stops in like timely ways to blunt any momentum that, would have happened. And part of that was because of Jamal's tentativeness in particular, because it was clear after that first quarter that he was not looking to score.
Yeah.
Even with space. Or here's something that's related, and I don't know if you're going to bring this up in the offense segment. The team is taking substantially fewer mid-range jump shots, and just as a team, and I think part of that is Jamal, but I think that Jokić also is taking fewer shots from mid-range than like at any point in his career. Almost feels like the Nuggets are Morey-balling their offense this season, except it's like extreme in the direction of like pressuring the rim and obviously like only taking threes, like not taking mid-range jump shots almost at all. And it feels like whenever Jamal gets that open space, whenever he is able to create some separation, whether it's off a screen or whatever, he's not hunting that shot. And I don't know if that's a team directive or if that's a him thing and it's just contributing to the overall team numbers. And so that's just like a question I have in the back of my head.
I thought in this game he had some glimpses of the types of shots, the types of tough shots that we know he can make. I think we've talked about how we are skeptical of his decision making so far this season. And I think part of it is that he's used to being able to make shots, including going to some of these tough shots. And if that's not in his bag anymore for whatever reason, whether it's he's still getting into shape or he's still getting over nagging injuries, then maybe he should be adjusting his game and not hunting those types of tough mid-range shots. One of the least efficient shots in the game. It's prone to variance. That's why sometimes Jamal is inconsistent. But I feel like we're dealing with a whole nother level of inconsistency with Jamal right now. But just for sake...
I think inconsistent is like generous for how he's been playing.
Has he ever played well bad. Is the question. But just for sake of getting into this, since we're already talking about it, I had some clips of Murray here where, here he is off a screen and he's attacking Cat, which I'm sure he thinks Cat is a pretty good mismatch for him, as he's prone to be. Cat's not like the quickest necessarily on his feet or the best one-on-one defender.
What is PJ doing here? Because he was in, then he walks further out, so that gets OG out of the lane at least, because he was going to be able to help on Jokić kind of rolling with a mismatch. So Mikal gets caught on the screen here. This is the same thing from the play that I'm thinking of in my head, but it's on the opposite side of the court. Mikal gets caught on the screen, and then Jokić gets the switch. Now Jamal has to hunt his shot.
But like Jamal could have just passed it to Jokić right here.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hands in there. I like that he took the shot. Like, I like him being aggressive here. There were other possessions where he was looking to pass to Jokić with that exact same like sequence happening where Mikal gets caught on the screen and they have to give up the switch. And then the Knicks were able to either bother the pass or whatever it is. So I actually like that he took this shot, particularly because he made it, right? Because it's not like a great shot, but it's like
swished. It's glimpses of the Murray we know, the tough shot maker. And other times, though, where he's going to these off-balance shots. I don't have the exact stats on this. I feel like his open shots, he's hitting more. But this was like the classic like Murray little side fadeaway where he was wide open, though. But like you said, later on, he was looking to pass more. And he had this like... I think we've criticized him for missing some pocket passes sometimes to Jokić, and this is actually a really difficult behind-the-back pocket pass that I was happy about and impressed with.
Well, I don't think... did that ball go in the pocket, or did it go behind McCall?
It went in the pocket. It goes right in front of Bridges.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
So I was like, wow, behind-the-back pocket pass. Okay, and obviously Cam has to rotate over and take Jokić, which leaves Pwat open, though OG was there. I like that finish from Pwat too, little pump fake and finish. That was a nice one.
Just keep finishing at the rim, Peyton, and then I will be happy.
Right. And then my favorite Murray play of the Knicks game was this assist from him that was pretty crazy, actually. Murray gets a handoff, drives in, and gets a pretty hard kick out to Mike, who makes the three. And that's just some of the decision making I'm hoping to see from Jamal more, I think. I don't know if the answer truly is Jamal just deferring more and trying to go for more assists in this slump, because we do need him to be more offensively potent and scoring more. But I am thinking
it needs to be aggressive enough that it matters. Like, the reason the defense reacts here is because he blows by his man and he's going to get to the rim, right? And that opens up the passing window to get the ball to MPJ in the first place.
If he's healing up or becoming more conditioned, he'll have more opportunities like that, hopefully. But I just think, like, going back to this Mavs game, I had questioned this specific play. So I'll get your thoughts on it, where Clay is doubling from the top of the wing where Murray is now wide open, and Jokić passes it back out to Murray, who relocates to the corner to go for, this catch and shoot 3-point in the corner. He's off rhythm and is fading away to the side, like we just saw him hit that mid-range.
I mean, we've seen him make that shot. I would be more concerned with him not, like, I'm more concerned with the sequences where he's not taking those shots. Like, missing shots is missing shots, and it sucks that he's in that slump. But, like, this possession is fine to me.
But what if Murray just stayed still on the 3-point line and just went for a simple catch and shoot? Do you think Jokić wouldn't have been able to pass out without him relocating?
So one thing that you could critique him for, and it's in line with what I just said, is it looks like he's trying to run into it to force Clay to be the closeout defender, which will make it easier for him to just get the ball back to Jokić. But then both guys come with him, and then he has to take the shot. But I thought that the shot form, like, was fine. Yeah, it's off movement, all of that. And maybe he should have stayed back at the arc. And the reason that he didn't do that is because he wasn't trying to take that shot.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, that's also the difference between having that guy who's one pass away be MPJ, who's just going to stand there and take that shot, or Christian, who's going to pass the ball in and then cut to create the space for Jokić to either post up or get himself open for a dump off pass. Too. So that's just, like, it's the same play that you talked about where first in the OKC game, like, the guy who's one pass away changes, like, the decision tree, basically, depending on, like, what that guy does.
That was when Murray was out with concussion. We thought, how is this going to look when Murray's back? And obviously Murray was in that one pass away position instead of Mike. I think sometimes he's been in that position too, and, like, he cut, and that created opportunities for other people as well.
It's also, like, you don't always want to cut either. Like, there has to be some variety there. Otherwise, the defense always knows that, like, okay, this guy's going to cut. Like, Jamal could do any one of the three things that we talked about, so you don't know what he's going to do. And clearly Dallas didn't, because they had to react, like, in a scramble, situation. But he just happened to miss the shot that he ended up taking.
And it's easy to critique Jamal when he misses the three. I mean, if he made it, we would have been like, oh, that was great. But at least he went and took the three and didn't go for the mid-range, because I do think it's probably a good thing if he's adding more threes, adding more attempts from three. That was like a team goal in itself, is to up the 3-point attempts rather than the mid-range shot. So
I don't believe them, because they're not actually doing it. Except for MPJ, who's, like, trying to. But it's been different since he's been playing it before, honestly, because he's just getting so much more inside.
I just wonder, we've talked about this with Murray, or at least Nuggets media and fans have talked about it with Murray throughout his careers, when he switches from being, like, the scorer to being the floor general when he's passing and playmaking. And I'm just wondering if he needs a recalibration of that.
Right.
All right, well, that was a good episode. Hopefully we have more wins to talk about when we join you next time. I have a good feeling that we will. But in the meantime, listeners, thank you if you already are subscribed. We love you and appreciate you subscribing, taking the time to listen to us. If you're new to us or just lurking and checking us out, consider fully subscribing to help us out. We're almost to 800. We want to get to 1,000 as soon as we can and keep growing. So appreciate your time. If you're here, like and share the video and hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our uploads. Follow us and listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music, and leave a review if you choose to listen to us there. Follow our Instagram and TikTok for our short content, as well as our clip channel on YouTube. And just remember, winning is fun and losing sucks.